Hey, we're going to do a full page tutorial using the Flex Box Containers within Elementor. Make sure you got Elementor 3.6 at least. 3.6.1 is now out as well. And make sure you've gone into your Elementor settings, go over to experiments, and make sure you've enabled the Flex Box Container. Otherwise, you won't see this container. And this is what we're going to be using for this entire page, because I think it's quite important that rather than just seeing snippets and bits and pieces about alignment, direction, and all of that, we actually build something. So I am also going to do a header as well on here. Normally you would do this in the header template, and then you would activate it across certain pages, posts, or your entire site. But we're just going to do it as a one-page website. So I'm going to click over here, and I am going to choose to either have one container, or I could have one container with two containers within. Get your head around this, okay? We normally have section, 2 columns. We now have a parent container, and we have 2 children containers within. So I'm going to go for one like that at the moment, okay? And I'm going to do this, and I'm going to then get out of it, okay? So on purpose, I'm going to do it the old way, and I'm going to show you how you could do it in a much better, less coded way. So over here, I am going to add in a image over here. And I'm going to pick this image. So I've gone and got loads of images and bulk resize photos.com to shrink the sizes down. This is a 1920 by 1080 image, and it's only 25 kilobytes. I'm going to scale it down in a moment, but let me just get the image in. Let's put it as a full. Let's put it as a left align. And I'm just going to go in now, and I'm going to make the pixel size for this be about 250. Yeah, 250, that works quite well for me. And I'm going to hit update. Now, this is my quick tip, and we're not focusing on this for the tutorial, by the way. I've done it before. I like to get my images in at 1920, good resolution, okay, compressed and converted down to WebP. Once I know the size I'm now going with, I then like to go back into the image, and then I edit it. And this is where I scale things down now. So I now know first thing I'm going to do is kind of crop it a bit. Just going to crop it a little bit there. Crop, like so. Like that, let's crop it. Just going to hit save for a moment. It's going to go back to insert. I'm going to just update my page. I'm also going to refresh the page. Sorry I'm doing this, by the way, because we are focused on Flexbox containers, but just a quick tip here. Just going to double check the size. So 250 now looks a bit too big. We'll go down to, in fact, we'll go to 200. Yeah, 200 works well. Okay, so again, I've just cropped it. I should have done that before I did this, by the way, so excuse me on that. We go back into the image. I'm going to edit it now, and I'm going to scale this to be 200 in terms of width. The height will automatically adjust for me, and then I'm going to click scale, like so. That's now done. That is now scaled, and I hit back, insert media. And what you have to do at this point, though, is you do have to hit a reload on your page, because you want it to now bring forward the correct image. So if I now go over here, okay, that is now 200. And if I click on the image, look, it is 200 by 61. We've gone from, what was it, 22, 29, whatever it was, kilobytes. We're down to 3 kilobytes. High resolution image, big size, WebP'd it, got it in. Now I decide what size it is. I can now use it. The reason why I recommend this to everyone out there, again, we're digressing. If you resize it and compress it before you get it into your media library, what if you then realize the size is now not correct? Too small, too big, whatever. And you haven't got the original image. You're a bit stuck. Whereas over here, I could go back into the image, edit it, and do you see an option down here? Sorry, here it is. I was looking for it then. Restore original image. If I do that, I can actually restore it back to the 1920 size. That's a really big tip for you in case you don't like doing that. We're then going to go over here to the container. I'm going to go to the style. I'm going to change the background color, and I'm going to go for this color here, which is gray, but it's just an off gray. Okay, it's a very light gray. It's not F3. I think it's F6 in fact. Yeah, F6. Okay, that's a pretty good color. Now, before we continue any further, look at this container. The logo we've put in the image has gone to the top left corner. If I now click on the container, not the image, the container, and I go down here to items, I can readjust it. But before we do that, let's just decide on what we're doing. Is this going to be a full width for a box? Yeah, we'll go with full width. There's no need for me to touch this width, actually, by the way. You can do if you want, but we're going to leave it as 50 for now, because I'm just showing you how it works with 2 containers. And the minimum height I'm going to leave blank, and I'm not going to set any overflow at the moment. We then go to items. Now, at the moment, the direction of this container is set to be a column. What that means is if I was to now duplicate this, it goes underneath one another, which is kind of what we're used to with Elementor, right? But I'm going to get rid of that. And if I was to go back into the container, we're in a child container as well. I need to stress that. This is the parent container. This is the child container. We go to items. I could hit row. Nothing's going to change because we only have one item. But what would have happened is when you add in another item, let's just do it again. It now goes side by side. Okay, so it's like an inline effect, basically, which we're not worried about at the moment. The thing I'm focusing on is that Apple logo. I mean, I shouldn't say Apple because app.ler, okay? But that logo is in the top right. If you go to items, you have the align option. Now, here's where you have to get your head around a little bit. Okay, so with the row, your estate is actually going downwards. Even though your items sit in a row, your estate is vertical. If you're a column, your estate is horizontal because everything is underneath one another and the excess space is here. Whereas in a row, because your columns sit in a row, the excess space is below. So if I now hit this align item, it now moves to the middle, kind of like what we wanted at the moment. And if I want to, I can also adjust it to now sit in the middle of the column as well, or the container. You got to get used to not saying section and column, really. It's container, container, container. That is now moved to the center. I'm going to leave it as flex start. I'm happy with it being at the beginning. Now, an important thing to remember, though, is when you look at this right now, it seems like there's quite a bit of padding at the top and bottom there. And you might go, well, there's nothing on the container or the child container, and it's all set in the middle. Why are we getting this extra spacing? Please don't be fooled by this. If you just minimize by hitting the chevron, you'll see actually there's not much there. So don't sit there starting to now mess around with your margins and padding. Always remember just to expand your screen or look at it fully. Right, over here, we're now going to stick in a nav menu as well. We'll just pick one up. This is a test website, by the way. I'm only going to pick up, in fact, you know what? We'll just leave it on that one there, okay? I've actually done more than just style it. I've put a railway typography in, weighting of about 500. It's got a bit of a hover color going on there as well. But I've also shrunk the logo down to 140 pixels just to bring it a bit more slimmer. Now, what you'll notice is that this currently at the moment, again, is over on the left-hand side. If I was to click into this container and I went to items, I could now start to define how it looks. Now, I'm going to set this back as a row as well. And I'm going to say that this item is aligned to the center as well, which is what I want because I want it to be in the center. But I'm also now going to put it at the flex end. So this is where we've got the logo, which is flex start. So it's right over there. And for the second container, whatever we stick in there is flex end. So it's going all the way to the end there. It's just kind of like some of these are terms you would have been used to using in the column, horizontal, vertical position. Anyway, start, middle, end, between, even, and all of that. So that's the option I've gone for at the moment. Now, if I was to view this, okay, I haven't added any margin or padding at the moment. In fact, I'm just going to go over here to this container, the parent container, and make this be a full width, okay? And if we just view it now, that's now going all the way across there. You can see there's quite a lot of space. What if I want to have them like close together, for instance? What if I want to have them perfectly in the middle of the screen there? Well, in that case, I would say you don't really want to have 2 containers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the nav menu and I'm going to stick it after the image, like so. Okay, so what we've now got is we've got the the app logo, and we've got it over here as well. I'm now going to get rid of this container. So what we now have is just, we have a parent container, and then we have a container within. Now this is where I would strongly recommend you don't need to have a container within a container. And this again is something you got to get yourself used to doing. We would have section, then we'd have container, and then you'd have your items in. Well, because there is no adjoining container over on here, it's just one container, child, you don't need to have it. So I'm going to pick up this image and I'm going to take it outside of the container. And I'm going to take the nav menu and take that outside of the container as well. And I'm now going to get rid of this inner container. Well, it was a container, wasn't it? It wasn't even an inner container. I call the inner container the inbred container, a bit like the inner section, right? You don't want too many of them. But here it doesn't matter so much because it's a container and they're quite lightweight. So we have a container, right? The parent container, and we go to the items. It is set as a row because they are now side by side. I'm going to make sure they are centered. Did you notice the logo? Look at it. It moves down a little bit. And now let's just center it. And look, what we now have is logo and your items side by side. Now, come on, let's be honest here, though. That logo is a little bit too close to the menu, right? So we might as well add in a bit of space. We have the element gap. Look at this. Ooh. We can now increase the spacing rather than the standard 20 pixels. I mean, this is quite cool. Let's just go for a 40. Let's see how that looks. Okay, not looking too bad there, right? And I think what we need to do now is add in a bit of padding. What do you think? So let's just click on the container. Let's go to advanced and I'm going to go to the padding and I'm going to give it about 5 and 5 on the top and bottom. Let's just check how that looks. I think we can get away with that. You might want to do a little bit more. You know, if you put 10, I think it would become a little bit too big. Now, before we continue, my big tip to you and everyone out there, whether you're using Flex Container, Section Columns, or anything, any other page builder, don't move on until you've done the mobile responsiveness. And how does it work with Flex Container? So we click over here, we click the mobile view, and at the moment, it's looking okay. Now, the nav menu, there is a bit of styling we've just got to do there. We've just got to make sure that the background is that color there. Now, what you will notice, though, is that if I go to the image, okay, and I go to the, well, let's just click on the container. The nav menu is not in the middle, okay? Even though if we go to the parent container, we go to items, even though it says align items in the middle, it's not in the middle. And that is just something about the way nav menus are. I always find there's a little bit of a bottom there, like almost looks like extra padding. The way you could get rid of that is you could click on the nav menu. If you go to advanced, you do have the options here to align it further. So this is like top, which doesn't change. This is center and it moves like probably like not even a millimeter, not even a millimeter. And then you could also do flex send, which would bring it down, but none of these actually work. So this is where I might increase, and I might put in about 7. Yeah, 7 actually was right. And I'll just do a -7 as well at the bottom. So what I now have when I view it is I've got my nav. I think 7 was a bit too much there. It should have been maybe 6, but I'll just go with it for now. So this is where you get to do your testing, your styling, etc. Okay. You will have noticed there the mobile menu just completely pulled everything down. That's because we haven't fully set it yet. So I'm going to go in and say make it full width. And if we now test it now and I click it, it's now coming down without pulling the logo down. And you would do your additional styling and everything as well for the background color, your horizontal padding and things like that. You should be very familiar right now with using the nav menu. And if you haven't, please do go and play with it. Okay, look, here's the styling. So when you come to do the drop down, I might decide that I'm going to have a lot more vertical padding. So let's just increase that ridiculously like that. Let's just do something like that. Okay, so that you can now see what is going on there with the sizing, the way it's spaced out. We're not focusing on every individual little widget, otherwise this video would become horrendously long. Let's crack on. So we've done a header section using the Flex container. We could have had a container with 2 containers within and then aligned them however we want. But then I also showed you that if you've only got 1 container, you don't have to have a child container. Just use the parent container. Because the great thing is, whereas before you had settings for section and a setting for a column, now whatever you do within, say, the column, you now do within the section as well. But this time they are just containers. Let's now add in another section. So I'm going to go in here and I'm now going to add in a hero banner. We're going to click 1 container. I'm going to make this be a boxed, and I'm going to make it be a pixel size of about, we'll go with 900. Okay, it's just a 900 pixel size there. In terms of the height, I'm going to go for a VH of 50. No, we won't go for VH50, that's too small. We'll go with a 75. That means that set container, got to get my words right, that container will be 75% of your screen. So if you pick VH100, it will be the full size of your screen. Okay, now one thing I haven't done is I haven't activated the sticky header yet, and we're going to come back to do that in a moment, but let's just sort out the hero banner first. Okay, so within here, I am going to now go over to my widgets or elements or bits and pieces or my snack box, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to drop in a header. Now, as soon as I drop in a header, it goes to the top right. Get used to that. That is commonly where everything will go, okay? I've gone with change the world, railway, and it's a weighting of 400 there. Cool. Okay, now here again, if I click on the container and I was to go down to layout and we go to items, this at the moment, if I set it as the row, it goes to the far left of that container, which is a boxed width of 900. I could center it so it goes down into the screen, and I could also center it like that. I could also just do something like a column if I want. Now, even though I've picked column, notice nothing has really changed here, because at the moment I've picked center. Justify is centered, and the alignment is also centered, so it makes absolute sense that it's going to be in the center. But if I go for column and I do flex start now, it's going to be at the top in the center, whereas if I did row, it's in the center. Remember, the estate is to the is below when you do row, and it's to the right when you do a column. So I'm going to leave this here, so it's centered because the estate for the column goes horizontally, and I've also say do it to the top here, so it's at the top. Now, this is the point where you could again add in some padding. You could either do it to the header. So I could go in and say I could put in, say, like 40 like that. So that pushes that down. Or I could just go to the parent container. I could go to advanced and I could just say, right, let's just move this down by, let's just go with a 50 like that. Whatever you want to do, whatever works for you. Now into here now, we are going to add in some further elements. But this is where I now want to drop in another container. So we've got a parent container. In that parent container, we have the heading. I'm now going to pick up this container and look at this. I'm dropping it. Sorry, it's gone below, but let me just pick it up and move it. There we go. So again, get your head around the fact that before, when you had a section, if you added a header, it went into a column, right? You couldn't just drop a header into a section. No, it had to be section column, right? Well, now that header just sits in the section. My column, my container, sorry, you know what I mean, okay? The child container is now sitting below the header. This is crazy, right? Or not, or maybe yes, or I don't know, maybe nothing at all. And what I'm now going to do is add in an image. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to pick an image. Now, I have to be honest here, all of these images I've picked are, these are about 500 pixels in width. I don't think they need to be that big. They're only 18 kilobytes because they're WebP, but they're about 500 by 920 pixels. They're quite big. I'm not going to crop and scale them because I've already shown you that with the logo, but that's what you would do. And I'm going to pick up some of these images. So I'm going to pick up, we'll go with this image here. And I'm going to set this to be a full. I'm now going to set the size of this, and I'm going to go with a, oh, that's way too big. I'm going to go with a 150 size like that, okay? And I'm going to also go to advanced. I'm going to go to transform, and I'm going to rotate this like so. In fact, we'll go with a 45. There we go. We'll go with a 45 row. Now, what I want is 2 more phones to be sitting to the side of that, but I want them to be in a slightly different layout. Now, on purpose, you notice that when I created this, I created it as a column, and I now want to show you a problem that the first time you come across this is going to probably make you go, whoa, what is this? But you don't have to worry about it. I am now going to duplicate. I want 2 columns. I could have gone down here and actually created a section that looked like, sorry, container that looks like this. You got container and you got 2 further containers. I could have done that. So I had changed the world as a not a big, a reasonable height container, and then I have this in. I could have done that. But I want to show you how you can get around the fact of how, what if you want to add in some variation, but it's all within the parent container. So I'm not going to use that. I'm going to go over here and I am going to duplicate this. Now, you know what's going to happen, right? This is set as a column. The parent container is a column. It goes underneath. Okay, we are clear on that, okay? Because it's set as a column, it goes underneath. So what happens now if I go over to my parent container, because I want them to be side by side. I go to items and I set this to be a direction to be a row. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think? Well, what happens is probably going to make you go, what? That is what happened. Okay, so it's like, it's kind of put it into a row, which shouldn't scare anyone, but it now looks a little bit weird, right? Because look, by doing that, it's put everything side by side, but I wanted that change the world to be above what we have here. So all of a sudden now, the way I've made it look has gone kind of like a bit skewed, right? I want to change the world to stay above. Please get it back there. What I now need is for the containers within to wrap. So I have changed the world. I want this to sit at the top. We have a function over here called wrap. If I click this, this is where it's going to go weird. Okay? So what you now have is this is now almost back to where we were before, but it looks different. And I feel like I've got to really stress this out a bit. Here's where we were. Here's what happens when we go with the row, because I now want these containers to be side by side. To get this to be back to the top, I have to wrap it. But can you now see it's gone to the left? So if I now go over to this container again, make sure in items, the justify at the minute is on flex start. So if I do this, we are now back in the middle. This is where your brain will kind of like go grind to a halt. You just have to remember that if you see something that isn't in the right position, don't lose hope. Don't start smacking the screen or me or anyone like that. Don't throw a slap or anything. What you've got to do is just think, right, okay, parent container, I've got my contents. These are centered for that container, but the parent container is flex start. So let me get that in the center. So I've gone to town on that bit, but I really feel like you need to understand that you might have it set and you go, oh, it's lovely. You then change a little bit and then suddenly it goes a little bit like that. You just got to use the settings you have here. And you can't go wrong. Align, justify. If it's a row, the align is working this way and the justify works that way. If it's a column, the align works that way. And the justify works this way. Okay, so you just got to get your head around what you're doing there. Right, so even though we've done all that, and I've wasted 20 minutes of your time probably, the containers are still below one another. So let's sort this out. And in fact, I'm going to add in even more containers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this image like that. So I just have a blank container. Now I could start to mess around with adding in further containers, but what you will find, and this will take some time to get used to, is that when you click on a container now or right click, you don't have add container, like add column. And when you hit duplicate, it just goes below one another, like this at the moment, which isn't really what we want. We want them to be side by side. So let me just undo that for a moment because we're wrapping, remember. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to pick this layout here. I'm just going to do that. So I now have a container with 4 containers within, like this. I'm going to copy this container, right? Go to my new container that I've already got there, and I could just paste it into there now. Remember, you could have done a section above over here if you wanted to. Sorry, you could have done a container here and then in another container here. But I just want to show you, if you were to paste now here, you've now got your containers within that container. But if you are one of those people that is kind of very conscious about what you're doing, let me just undo that, okay? You might not want to do that approach. So I'm just showing you that there are some things you've got to get your head around. So I'm just going to, for now, pick this image up and paste it into this new container we have here. I'm then going to go over to my navigator, and where we have our parent container at the moment, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to get rid of that as well. I'm now going to click on the parent container, and I'm now just going to make the layout be, I'm just going to zero it out for now and have it something like that, because we've already got some padding at the top there for this section. So I'm going to click on the container. I've got to stop saying section. It's like it's inbuilt into my head to say section and column. So apologies for that. I'm going to add in about 30. No, we'll go with about 50 there as well. Yeah, 50 will do fine. So here we have our third container, okay? And this contains within there a container for the image where we have it. And then we have these additional containers. And if we now study the layout of that container, because it's built for you, don't forget. In fact, let me just go back over here and make it a box of 900. If we go to the items, it is a row and it is wrapping. You take the wrap off and you can see here what it's now doing. It's now gone into like having them in a row. By having the wrap, it's now wrapped them. And if you click on each of the containers, you'll notice it says 50%, 50%, 50%, 50%. It doesn't matter that it says full width there because it's the full width of the container within, and it has 50. But the directions at the moment for all of these are currently going down as columns. So what that means is as you add items, they will go below one another. I'm going to pick up this image over here, and I'm just going to paste it into all of these 4 areas here at the moment, like so. I'm then going to change the images. There we go. We have 4 images. I've just swapped them around, okay? I'm now going to just change the rotation for them. So this one, I'm going to go to advanced, and I'm going to rotate it now to go the other way. So there you go. I've swapped them around, and I've rotated the images. So I've got this kind of like almost like a cross effect going on there. However, they are quite far apart, and this is where you can start to use the power of the container. Let's go over to container 1. We go to items, and it doesn't matter what direction it is. This is where we can start to align them. Now, remember, when you're working in a column, your estate is kind of horizontal. So I'm going to say align this over here. Now, when I do flex end, it goes right across, and it's kind of creeping out of the image over there. That's just because of the way it's been transformed. So if I now click on the image, and I go to advanced, and bear in mind, though, the images, the functionality you had with the links, the hover and all of that, they're all still there, the height, everything like that. If I start to touch any of these items here, okay, this will, it kind of just, it's not really doing much more different than what I was doing in the container anyway, because it is just one item. So I would leave that as it is. You could also do something like this where you start to do custom, and you start to mess around with that. But again, because it is just one item, I really wouldn't worry about that really that much, to be honest. I mean, you could do this with the width, but rather than do that and complicate things, I'm just going to go in, and instead I'm going to do a bit of margin. I'm going to go to the right, and I'm going to say, give me about 50, which is probably not enough. Let's go with 75. There we go. And what I'm going to do now is just replicate that. So for all of these, I'm going to add 75 on the right for these two, and then 75 on the left for these two. So in case you're unsure, on this column, please remember, right, on the layout for not the column, the container, okay, because it's a column, it is now flexed to the start because it's the estate is horizontal, and then the actual image, I've got a 75 on the left to push it away, okay? So if we now view that on the screen, that's looking okay. I mean, I have to be honest though, I think the spacing we got here is a little bit too much, so I'm just going to go over here, and I'm going to decrease this down to be, whoa, where did I go there? We'll go with about 30, okay? In fact, I think you can get away with that 25, in fact. Yeah, 25, that's fine. So we've got change the world, and we've got these items coming in. You could do some motion animation as well at this point. So for this image, I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to go to motion effects. I'm going to go for entrance animation, and I'm going to go with a bouncing. No, we won't do bouncing. How about we do rotate in up left? So rotate in up left. Okay, so it basically comes like that. If we're going to do rotate up left, we've got to then reverse it for all the other ones, and that's what I'm going to do now. So let's just preview that now. This one, by the way, was get my words right, rotate in down left. So rotating up left, down left, up right, down right. Let's just update that. We've got a bit of an entrance animation. It's different than having things just slide in, which is so common these days, isn't it? Fading up, fading down, sliding, zoom in. I don't like the bouncing ones, but hey, of course, before you do anything else, you should then double check how is this looking on your mobile. And look, this is where we now have lots of things going on. Now, this is where you have to think very carefully about, are you going to be showing off all of these items? Are you going to change the layout? So let's just take this item here. If I go down to the motion effect, the transform, I can, if I want, click this here and then say, right, for the mobile, set it to be 0. Okay, so on the desktop, you have that. On the mobile, we have 0. Go to your layout, and I could actually get rid of the right spacing that we've got over there, okay, where we were pushing it in terms of margin. I could then click on the actual container for that image, go to layout, go to item, and I can now center align it. So what you do in the desktop can be different for the tablet and the mobile. It's like what we're used to doing with sections and columns and items anyway. So I'm just showing you, look, that's what we got. And then we've got this going on. Or you could quite easily get everything to still do the same effect, but this time it's doing it on the mobile. So is that possible though on the mobile? That's the question you're probably asking. If I click on this container, okay, at the moment it's just set to 100% for the mobile, even though on the desktop it was 50. So let me just go back over here. Look, it was 50, okay? So let's just go back to the mobile. If I now go here and I make this be 50, that's kind of, pixels. Let me get that right. So I'm going to set that to be 50. If I go over here to this container and I pick percentage and I make that 50, can you see now we have now gone back to almost having the layout we wanted? So let me just take this. And again, I'm really sorry if it feels like, well, you've undone it and now you're redoing it. It's just to get you to understand the flexibility you have here. Let's go back to transform. And for the mobile, we're going to put this back onto, no, it was negative, wasn't it? Yep, there we go. Negative 45, okay? We're then going to go to click on the image, which we have already. And I'm going to set this image to be, we'll go with we won't go with 75. We'll go with 50%. Okay, we'll go with a 50% size like that. Let's click on this image and quickly make it be a I'm not going to do it for, all right, I'll do it, but I'll fast forward it, okay? So that's 50-50 as well. But look, it's looking really small because don't forget, it's got a bit of this margin on there. Let's just undo that. And now I'm going to do the same for the others as well. Okay, so that's done. Now, before we continue anymore, let me just go over to my heading. Remember, these are the sort of things you should do anyway with any when you're working on any page. Don't just skip the fact that your sizing of your headers has changed now. So let me just put that to a 2. That kind of works okay. I think this particular section can be forced away a little bit. I think we can get away with about, that's way too much. There we go, go with the 20 there. I'm also going to go into this container and I'm just going to give it a little bit of padding on the side because I'm finding that's just feels a little bit too close for my liking. We'll go with 15. 15 is always my favorite when it comes to sizing like that. So if I now preview this, so I'm using responsinator.com. Let's just refresh that. And you can see what's going on there. We still have the animation going on there. And you still have your navigation, which I haven't styled, etc. But you get the idea. So we've spent quite a bit of time just messing around with containers there and motion animations and whatnot. But I just wanted to get across, it's not that difficult if you kind of know what you're doing with it and you get your head around alignment, justifying and things like that. Let's crack on with another container. So I'm now just going to go for a, I could go with lots of different styles here, but I'm just going to go with one big one here. I'm going to make it be about 60 from the top there. The layout for this will just be a full width because it's just going to be an image, to be honest. There won't be anything in there. I'm going to click over here and I'm now going to pick from one of my loads of images that I went and got a hold of and found that I thought these would be quite useful to stick on. Let's go for this image over here. We're going to make it a center. We'll make it a fixed. even though there's no need to make it fixed because it's just an image, but it looks quite nice. We'll have no repeat, and I'm going to make it be a cover. And I'm going to go to the layout for this container, and I'm going to make the height of it be, we will go with about 50, something like that, okay? So as you're scrolling up and down, you just get this little bit of a reveal going on here, okay? Just basic containers. So I'm just showing you again, this is not anything that different from what you would have been used to with your basic section in a way, okay? Now, I would probably say that just having that on its own looks a bit rubbish, in my opinion. So let's just go over here and we'll just put in a header, okay? Now, remember, we're now back into the territory of the container. So let's go to item. We'll leave it as a row. We'll center align it. We'll make it a center like that. The font style isn't really working very well. I've written fingertip magic. I'm going to go to style. I'm going to leave it. I'm actually going to make this be a pure white rather than it being an off shade white like that. I'm going to go with the typography, put this over to railway. Of course, by the way, please do use a custom loaded font, and I've covered videos on that. And for the REM, I'm just going to make it be about we'll go with a 5, in fact. We'll go with a 5, and I'm going to make this be quite bold there. That's way too bold. 7 will do. And we'll give it a shadow, text shadow. Well, you could go with a stroke pattern as well, don't forget, all right? And you get rid of the color so the stroke pattern stands out. But I'm instead going to go with a shadow effect, and we will get it to be a pretty darkish color like that. And I'm just going to go with a 5 for now. 5, I think, isn't working well. We'll go with a 10 there. Okay, cool. We'll just update that. That's fine. Okay, right. So we've got fingertip magic. Now what I'm going to do is do another container underneath. Whoa, stop. Dude, what are you doing? Remember, never ignore the mobile responsiveness. Let's just go back in, okay? We've got our top section. All of that stuff going on. Fingertip magic. Well, come on. Don't leave it that big. Go in there and sort the size out. I think 3 might work. The 7 we can leave as it is. Let's just go over to the content now and stick that in the middle. Okay, that's looking okay. It kind of works for me. That's fine. Let's go back to the desktop. What we're then going to do down here is I would say we can now do another container. Again, you can just do a container on its own. You don't have to have a container within a container. So let's just do that. We'll have a container. In fact, we won't do that. We're going to go back into this container. We're going to go back to mobile. I'm going to click on that section, go to advanced, and I'm actually going to give this a 15 on the left and right. Because what I'm now going to do, okay, is I could just basically just duplicate this if I wanted to. Because now it's got the previous padding already in there. So I could just duplicate this like that. It's also already got the difference in the margin from the top. So I've changed the wording to be built to inspire and let your creativity rip. I'm going to go over here and I'm actually going to get rid of that image completely. No need for it. Okay, I'm going to click on the container, go to layout, go to items. Remember, look, we are in a row. Therefore, the estate is vertical. I was about to say horizontal then. It's vertical. So I'm going to align it to the top like that. So I'm going to put this down to be a 2 like that. And what I could now do is do a subheader. So I could even duplicate. Oops, sorry. Right. Sorry, I did it without thinking. If I now duplicate this, because it's a row, remember what we said? When you have a row layout, everything goes in line like that. So we're now going to go, right, we don't want that. I want it to be a column. Okay, so I click the container, go to items, and I'm going to say make this be a column. As soon as I do that, the center align where it was centered along the top, because it's now a column and your estate is now horizontal, it now centers that way. So I'm going to say, no, I want it to be there. I want it to be centered like that, not that way round. And also I want it to be flex start. Okay, so just remember what you do in the row, you almost have to reverse a little bit for the column. But play around with it. I mean, you can't really get lost with this, right? Look, it's even like the spacing between the contents and the items. You just play around with it and you will seriously get it, okay? In fact, I'm going to get rid of this and I'm going to add it in a text editor instead. So I'm just going to style that and drop my words in. Okay, so I've added in some words and it's, weight 400 railway. We're just going to go to style. Let's center it. It's a bit too wide. So let's just go into the container and let's make it be a pixel boxed width, in fact. And we will go with about 600. No, we won't. It'll be 700. I'm just going to duplicate that. And I'm just going to say order 1. For those of you that know what I'm talking about, you'll get this. There we go. Okay. So that's just me being a little bit cheeky there with some little bit of wording. So again, once we've done that, okay, again, just containers. What have we done? Have we done anything amazing there? No, it's just kind of like, it's just normal wording we've put in there. But once you get your head around alignment, justifying all of that, you'll be fine. Okay. Let's just check how that looks in the mobile. Oh my goodness, that looks awful. Right, and I have to say, I get so not annoyed, but I get a little bit like when people kind of skip a lot of these steps. Remember, this container already contains the 15 pixel padding on the left and right. Why? Because I copied it from above. So when you start to create the perfect container that has all of your settings in there, don't go rebuilding the world. Just create a parallel universe of the world and then deal with the multiverse. You get it. Okay, so for the mobile, okay, that is kind of looking okay now for what I'm just showing you here at the moment, so I'm okay with that. And by the way, if you wanted the words to be more slimmed down, you could just click into the text editor and add in some margin or padding there as well. Let's go back over to the desktop, okay? Now this container, if you recall, because the one above was 50, this is also 50, it doesn't need to be that. So I'm just going to get rid of that completely, okay? I'm okay with that container sitting as it is. Now again, this is where I could make a copy of this because it's got all my paddings in. But rather than do that, I'm going to go down here and I'm now going to pick the 2 containers or the 2 child containers within the parent container. Let's go and pick that. And at the moment, when we look at the style of that, you just need to scroll. Oh, sorry, I haven't added anything in. That's why it looks a bit odd. Let me just sort that out. I am going to just increase this now. On hindsight, when I look at it, I think the 50 is too small. So I'm just going to go with about, I think 60 should do it. Yeah, 60 just gives a little bit more spacing in a way. Right, so what we have here at the moment is we've added in a container with 2 containers. I'm going to go to advanced and I'm just going to give this about 60 from the top there. I'm going to make this be a boxed width, and I'm going to make this be a boxed width of 1000. We could do 900, a bit like what we had above, but I'm just going to go with 1000 here, okay? Just so it slightly just reaches out a little bit to the size of the screen. Now in container 1, I am going to drop in a image. Now, but rather than dropping in the image, okay, I'm going to actually drop it into the container. So like how we used to have like the column background image, we go over, okay, and I'm going to go to style and I'm going to go here and I'm now just going to pick my image. So again, we're just repeating some of the stuff that you kind of were familiar with or doing whenever you used to do it. So I'm going to pick that image there. I'm going to do center. We'll go with the fixed. Okay, we'll go with no repeat and we'll go with a cover. Something like that. Now, of course, this is not going to show the full image, and it's the same kind of thing we used to have before where you had to add in a spacer or something like that. However, because this is now a container, and what you would normally do with your parent container, the section where we had minimum height, you have that with the container here. Before with the column, you know what I'm talking about. You would add in a spacer, right, to space it. Well, no, you don't have to do that now. I can go over here and I can go VH25. I mean, of course, VH25 is a bit of a rubbish one, but I could go VH50 like that. That is now going to be a 50 of the estate on your screen. That's kind of quite good, isn't it? I could also start to mess around with the alignment, which I'm not bothering with at the moment. I just want to get across that this is now allowing you to set the size of your container or your column, whatever you want to call it. Let's just go over here back into the container. So I could do something like that and just mess around with the style a bit. Let me just update it. Now at the moment, that image is going all the way out to the edges of that container. Can you see that? It's going out all the way. But I just want to show you what happens. If I go over to this side here, I'm just going to copy this container and I'm going to paste the style. Okay, we get the same image. Okay, don't worry about that. But what we now have is like a perfect side by side. I don't actually want that. So I'm just going to go over here to this container. Okay, and I'm going to go to advanced and I'm going to give this some margin. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, give me about 10. I think 10 is a bit too much. Let's go with 5. Okay, and then I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste the style like this. So when we now look at it here, can you see what we've got going on here? And this image, I'm actually going to make be a scrolled like that. Okay, so what I now get is I get a bit of a variation going on there with the images as you're scrolling up and down. It's quite cool to do that. Now, here's where I want to point something out. This is a container, right? And because the image is a background image, you could now start to add in some further wording, you know, and you would stylize it, do what you want with it. I'm not going to stylize the wording here, by the way. Okay, I'm just showing you it. Because we're in the container, I can't stress this enough, right? Over here, I could now go down to, oh, I'm in the wrong section, layout. I could go to item and I can now start to define where the wording sits. Like, is it going to sit on the left? I mean, it doesn't work very well here because the column, because there's nothing else to add here. But if I go to row, you can start to define, well, where's it going to sit? And how's it going to sit on the screen? You know, I mean, the reason why you're not seeing anything happen here is because the wording is quite wide. But if I was to change this wording to be, we'll leave it as roboto and we'll just put it as a 16, okay? In fact, we won't do that because you can hardly see it. As a 20. If we go back over here, can you see now the wording is starting to shift around? So you could, I mean, let me just copy it. Let me just paste this here. You could start to add things in, and I'm just going to go back over here to the layout. And again, we're going to do the same thing and just put it in the center. All right, so you could add in your buttons, whatever you want. I mean, I haven't even added in a button yet, have I? Like, how bad is that? Where's your call to action? You know, so let's just quickly do that, okay? Just to show you that this is all still basic Elementor. Now, when I add in the button, it's gone to the right. And it's pretty easy to see why. You go to the item here, we are in a row. Let's set it to be a column, okay? And this is where I might go space between, space around, space evenly, however you want to do it. Or just go with the center approach. And then obviously you go to your button and you might go, that's a bit too close. Let's add in about an extra 20 pixels. Or you don't do that. You don't add in the extra there. Instead, you go to the container. You go to item. We have elements gap. So I could do this. Ooh. It's what you would normally be doing anyway with the columns gap, remember? Just a different type of terminology. Let me just change this button to be, I'm not messing around with the button. I'm not. I'm just going to do like that. We'll give it a solid border. We'll give it a white color as well. Why not? And in fact, I think the color there is not a great color for the orange. So we'll just go with a black color, for instance. I'm just going to make it be a little bit transparency like that. Okay. So yeah, bit of a transparency color there. There we go. That looks fine for me, okay? And then you would hover over it and it's going to take you somewhere, wherever. And of course, what you got to do is check how does it look on the mobile. So you might modify the size or the look of it or do something like that, okay? Bit of an afterthought there, but call to action button. And we can see what's going on as well with this new container I made with the 2 images. At the moment, when I look at it, the spacing on the left and right is not as good as the spacing in between that we have over here. So we're going to go to this container here. We're going to go to advanced and I'm going to say, give me a 5 and 5 and just check how does that look. There you go. That looks much better, right? And it looks cleaner as well. So try to think about your containers or your margin and padding as you work on it. Now, I am going to add in another section below here, okay? I've just realized this is not a good effect, what I did here with the custom. So I'm just going to take this off. I'm just going to put it on a center like that. That will work better. Yeah, that works better because of the layout. I'm now going to add in another section below where I'm now going to have, if I go here, a different layout. So I could now have like a stretched layout like this. So I've got like a 2 more containers and then a container that goes all the way across, or I could even have done a mosaic style like this. This is where you can really, really be creative in what you show off. And you could either do it as individual containers. So I could do a brand new container which only has, say, this layout or whatever layout. So you see this container here where you've got 3 at the top and you got a small one and a long one. You could have got rid of one of these and then have it like, you can mess around with the styling of it. Remember, a lot of these ones here, they're using the wrap function within the container layout, okay? Over here, they're using the wrap functionality. And most likely that's going to be 33%, 33%, 33%. If you take away one of these, you've got to change this to now be 50 and 50, so you get the 2 at the top. Now, I'm not going to spend more time doing that. Well, I will do it, in fact, and what I'm now going to do is actually go for this design over here. Let's just do it. Okay, so now we have this style. We're going to go over here, and I'm going to make this be a VH of 60 as well, like that. So let me just go over here and make this be a box width of 1000 again. Now watch what happens when I do this, okay? I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it here, and I'm also going to paste it here, right? Paste style. Both of these are 50%. But why are they going underneath one another? Because they're 50%. This does make no sense. Actually, it does. On all of these, I've added in an extra 5 pixels on the margin, okay? And because of that, and because this container, I was going to say section, is wrapping it over. If I unwrap it, they will start to eventually sit side by side when you work out the widths of them. But the wrapping is now causing that additional 5 pixel margin to pull it all over around, which is a little bit annoying. Do not get me wrong, it is a little bit annoying as to why it does that. So I now have to go into this section over here, and if I now remove all of this and set this to be 0, and I do the same here, set this to be 0, it now goes side by side. And we now have the ones below as well. So it's kind of like going, okay, we've got to play around with this a little bit, because I definitely want to have that spacing in there. And this is where you may have to just tinker a little bit with the margins and paddings that you're going to have on here. So if I go over to this container now, and we've got margin and padding over here. If I go here and I put in, say, 5 now, it just adds in a padding. But that's not what I want. I only did that to remind any of you that do it. And we've already understood that if I do 50, it kind of goes completely off the scale. So this is where I'm going to go to the column, go to the layer, and I'm now going to decrease it to be about 48. I'm going to pick this up, and I'm going to paste this style as well. However, can you see what's happening over here? By me making it be 48, it's now actually shrunk it down. So I'm going to change it to be 49. 48 was too much, sorry. And I'm going to go with 49. So there we go now. It's looking okay. And this is something that is going to catch you out, okay? 49 and 49. So I've had to remove a percent here and there just to get it to work. If I now pick this column up, I can actually drag it. So I'm now going to pick this one up. And I'm, rather than making it 66.6, I'm going to go with 65.66. And over here, rather than 33.33, I'm going to go with 32.33. And by me removing 1%, it works. And it's one of those things where you're going to go, huh? What is this? What are we doing here? It's just a simple process. And believe me, you will get used to it. You just have to play around, okay? Let me just very quickly change these columns. And of course, we would then repeat the same thing here. But if you've already done some of the hard work, what you could do is just hit copy over one container and just paste the style over another. What we're doing there. Okay, so that's pretty simple. And then you can, again, just change your images. So there you go. I've now added in some various layouts. And these layouts were quite complex for people in the past in terms of, well, how do I do it? And I'm messing around with columns. But you can now start to be really funky with some of the stuff you do now. And if we just double check how this looks on the mobile, remember, you do have to play around with it. So just like up here where I adjusted the column size, the container sizes to fit what I want, you could do the same here. Now I'm going to leave these as they are. There's still a bit of spacing I need to do to sort out the margins and paddings over here, because on one of these images, and I think this image here, you just got to adjust it a little bit in terms of its width. But you can play around and do that. So you can have your further content over here as well, and then how it looks on the mobile and, you know, all of that. I mean, this fingertip magic looks really odd, doesn't it, the way I've done that? I'm not sure I like that at all. I'm just going to leave it in here for now. But in terms of like a one-page website, if you imagine you had like anchors as well on your page, don't forget you can still do that as well. You could then click on items and it could take you to other pages, or it could take you down a page here. Now, I'm not going to do the footer. I mean, I could do the footer. Why not? Should we just quickly have a look at it? Okay, so let's say further down here, you might have some further items. You could go here. I mean, I would say it's probably better for you to pick one of these styles here. So you might want to have 3 containers or 4 containers. We'll just go with the 3 like that. I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to give it about 60 from the top. I will definitely add some padding within here as well, just so it's nicely laid out. And then obviously you'd go in and do your styling. Maybe have a bit of off-white there, you know, that grayish color kicking in there. I would probably go for, we'll go with full width. But then I will also do some padding as well on the left and right. So I might go 100, maybe like that, something like that. I don't know. And then you're going to start to add in your content. Okay, you're going to add in your content and whatever you want. Boom, 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 boom. You know what you're doing. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up this logo, right? We're going to stick this logo in here, right? Just move the logo to the top. Okay, and you would then adjust accordingly. But again, remember, this is a section. So if I start to mess around with down here with the, let's just go to the layout. If I make this be column, those 3 containers will go underneath one another. Can you see that? They've gone underneath one another. If you go to row, they go side by side, and you can then start to align them with how you want. So I'm now making that center. Doesn't look so good. I can maybe make them go on the bottom. Ooh, look how good that is. How easy was that just for me to get it all along the bottom? You know, whenever you're doing like a content box or something and the words just aren't sitting right or the button's not aligned, you could do stuff like that. I mean, I'm going to go into this container right now and I'm just going to say, right, we need to have some padding. Let's just go about, we'll go with 15 all the way around like that. Let's just copy that and we'll do that for these paste style, and we'll go paste style as well. There we go. So just got a bit of spacing going on there. You would mess around with it accordingly. And remember, if I click into this container, okay, which is now the child container, I could go to, no, what am I going to CSS for? I could go to items and I could like turn this into a row, turn it into a column. I could reverse the column as well. You know, look, I can start to mess around with the alignment. And I mean, this isn't going to move much because it's already kind of filling up the space, but I could even increase the gap as well between items. So this was a bit of a crash course into a one-page website, which kind of looks okay, I think. I mean, let's just see it in preview. Should we see it in preview? Yes, why not? Let's go to preview. So there we go. Change the world. We've got a bit of animation going on there. Bit of wording. Fingertip magic, you know, let it go. I was just doing this on the fly. Charge me up. Blah, blah, blah. Wording. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Or the one. And then we got like images here. I've got some wording over them, but you could play around with it, you know. And so this is like a really simple, you know, not too taxing on the brain, but I just wanted to get across a bit more about the Flex containers and how you can, you know, work with them a bit more, especially playing around more with the alignment and the justify and all of that. I hope you found this useful. I hope you feel more confident with having a go at it. You know, play around with it. And what I will say, Bo, is that if you have got a website where you've got an existing section, and then when you add in a new one, you have to use the Flex container, but you still want to use the section and columns because you're still not feeling ready for it, you can copy your previous section, right? Go over here, okay? Insert a, you can either paste it or you insert a container and then right click and paste over it. And your section and columns from before will appear as well. So have fun, go away and play with it. I hope you like, subscribe, share, and follow. I hope you put some comments down about how you're finding it, how you found the video, and everything like that. And of course, I'll keep seeing you.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss, that's fact, taking big swings, bitch, hand me the bat, put me in the ring, you'll go out in a